G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR and welcome to the Round 11 stock market video. Hope that you're all going well. The dreaded buys are finally here. They're finally upon us. We've been planning for this for the last 3-4 weeks. Some teams even took the buys into high consideration when they were selecting their starting squad. We're all in different situations here. I know some coaches that don't even really take the buys into consideration at all, and their attitude is, well, when they're here, I'll deal them then. You know, I can use 3 trades if I've got a couple of boosts up my sleeve, even 4 trades a week during the buys. So all in different situations, but one thing we're all looking to do is improve our on-field side. Now, we've got a few blokes here. You can see all premiums. There's not a heap of rookies to look at this week. We'll talk about a few, don't get me wrong, but yeah, they don't fill me with great expectation anyway. But we do have a man up the top that came back and dominated last week. Timmy English, is he a must-have? Yeah, we'll talk about him in a bit of detail. Same as Big Shrek Darcy. His break-evens come down now. We know about his ceiling. Could definitely be someone to look at closely in the rucks. Baz now has that added DPP. Can be selected as a forward. Really, really tempting option. And the 2 blokes down the bottom, unfortunately, I think maybe both on the chopping block. We've got Matty Rao there. Break-even, well over 100. That 3-rounder. Only in the 60s, not looking terrific. We could keep him this week, but he will start to lose cash. Is it worth just moving him maybe a week earlier? It's frustrating, I know. And then Dane Zorko, our captain, just a dog of a game, wasn't it? You know, his role's a little bit all over the place. If you're a Zorko owner, then you're obviously going to be a little bit concerned with this pick at the moment. But there is a lot to talk about with the blokes that do have the bye this week. I might skip past a little bit. I'll certainly list all of them so you can see their price and info and all the rest, but I'll really be focusing on those blokes that have the round 13 and 14 bye. You know, which players are we looking to bring in this week? And I'll also have a focus on some of those blokes, maybe like your Braden Pruce, that does have the round 12 bye this week, but will be relevant because we're actually looking to actively look to, well, possibly trading him out of our sides. I may have given you a little bit of a hint as to what my trades may be this week anyway. But last thing, just want to quickly say is thank you very much for all the well wishes and kind words. It really does mean a lot. Obviously been pretty crook lately. You can probably tell from the voice. I'm almost there though. I'm getting better, much better. But yeah, it really does mean a lot and much appreciated, guys. Yeah, got a great community here, and yeah, I'll just continue to keep on trying to pump it out as best as I can. But apart from that, guys, hope that you're well. All the best luck during the buys. Let's start off with the 500k plus defenders. At the top of the list this week, we have 2 boys in blue, so both unavailable in round 12. That's obviously Sinclair and Houston. Also got Ridley and Hewitt, who'll be out of action also. But yeah, quickly on Sinclair, what an amazing trade in last week. Just looked absolutely sublime, you know. Finding the pill with ease, getting that cheap football, doing a bit of a seagull job, but didn't he use the ball well, particularly in the first half? You know, lots of inside 50s, a really damaging type player, and a really nice kick to handball ratio. Take some of the kick-ins, or a lot of the kick-ins, ultra great role for him. So not playing really through the midfield anymore, but I'd much prefer him down back. So absolutely wrapped with that selection. Houston, you know how I feel. Never been a huge fan of Houston, but yeah, playing really well this season. Ridley and Hewitt. So basically, if you're looking at the blokes on this list, I think this year we have a clear D1 to D3. The order, I'm not 100%, but for me, that's Tom Stewart, James Sicily, and George Hewitt. And as we can see, yeah, 1 in blue, 1 in green, and 1 in red. So their averages are just phenomenal for defenders. You look at the 3-rounders, you know, you got Stewart with a 136, Hewitt's got that 120, and you got Sicily with a 137. You know, Sinclair, I think, is probably the 4th in line for averages from here until the end of the year. That 3-round average for him is a 128, coming off his 2 highest scores of the year as well, and working really well with Brad Hill down there. So I think we've probably got a clearish top 4, definitely a clear top 3. I think Sinclair's that one that goes next, and then you've probably got, you know, your Doherty types, your Dawson types. Could a short really find some form? Crispy, could he go nuts? Probably not. Chris probably doesn't have the ceiling. We're getting him for a 105 average and just a durable type player, but I'm probably skipping the slides a little bit here, aren't I? So look, we'll go with Tommy Stewart. Does this man have a ceiling? Another cosmic score, 174 on the weekend. Scary thing is, it's only his second highest score, punched out a 187 against Freo around a month ago, and that's why he hasn't really dipped in price. Only 2 scores under 100, which you can live with, when he's got that ceiling to balance things out. As I mentioned, the clear D1 to D2, maybe D3 this season, and has the potential to remain at 600k plus for a while. It's a lot to pay, but you're getting absolute quality. He's got the Dogs, Eagles, Tigers, and North in the next month as well. Blitzov's actually been performing really, really well. Got the most odd DPP status I think he can get, which is that defensive ruck status. So not too many swings there. A real pod option, but surely couldn't really go there. And Dale, look, 3-round average of 106, so that's actually the lowest on this list. So not in fantastic form, but at the same time, a 3-round average of 106 for a defender, yeah, we're not really going to complain with that, but not really competing with the absolute big boys. So here's a bit of a pod selection, but I'd prefer, if I'm getting Dogs into my side, I'm certainly looking into the forward line for that. And lastly, we've got Jordan Dawson. So one of the informed defenders in the comp last month, 134, 107, 130 and a 104. We've seen that his floor is pretty good, 98, 99, 97, 94 and an 81. So apart from that 81, hasn't gone below 94 for the season, which is really, really consistent. That ceiling is probably around the 130 mark. We saw at the end of last year playing for Sydney, he really did come home with a wet sail. So I think that he has a really good chance of finishing in the top 6 defenders, probably a peg below the 3 that I mentioned before, but really does have potential to push to even the top 4 to 5. You can see there's Shorty and Cumming both in blue. They'll be out of action this week. Couple of blokes in red in Crispy and Rich, and the one in green with Witho. Witho is just a bit of a pass for me at the moment. A little bit inconsistent. 533,000. We've seen his ceiling, got a big ceiling, certainly could work out, but with that break even of 145, very much in the red when you look at his 3-rounder of 91. I'd just look at other players at this stage. Crispy, for the first time in a long time, didn't quite reach 3 figures. But again, no disaster, a 97. So I think a 95 is going to be around his floor from here until the end of the season. But a little bit of a different change in role. Pendles has been spending a lot more time in the midfield. Crispy a little bit more time down back. So look, for me, I'm a pretty happy owner. 105 average he should go at. Should play every game, apart from his bye in round 14. So yeah, would I love to have a Stewart instead of him? Of course I would, but if he's going to be my D6 for the end of the year, yeah, quite content with that. And Richie was actually tagged last week, heavily tagged, almost out of the game, so really lowly score. Before that, in okay form. We've talked about it for the last, 2 or 3 months. Up, down, up, down, up, down. That's been the pattern with Rich, so unfortunately, did have a down game. Hopefully he can really bounce back against Freo this week. Onto the defenders, 250 to 500k, and the man at the top of the list is Jimmy Peatling. So playing out of his skin at the moment. I think you've missed the boat, but we'll discuss him a little bit more next week. Luke McDonald, well, an interesting selection. Had a really nice fortnight SuperCoach-wise. Scores a 127 against the D's, 132 last week against the Saints. Looking to go up close to 40k this week. So, look, if form continues, he could be a really sneaky option. Before his consecutive Tunzo, only scored a 63. That's a slight problem. Not exactly sure what happened in round 3, but he only dribbled out 28. Played the next week and scored a 101. So again, not sure if that was injury affected or not. I wouldn't assume so. Look, he's taken some kick-ins, which is handy. So decent role. Not sure what happens when Hawley is back. Don't know when he's due back. It's an awkward selection, mainly because of the other great options we've got at our disposal. So look, if there's a hole in your wallet, he could be worth a look. And onto another Luke in Luke Ryan. Similar to McDonald, an interesting option, but he was huge last week. 29 touches, 25 of those being kicks. Terrific efficiency. Also clunked the 14 marks. He was on kicking duties, 10 in total. So some nice free chips there. And we all know what this bloke's capable of. Has a massive ceiling. That was on show last week. Main issue is we haven't seen the best of him this year, and his floor is a bit of a concern. He's punched out a couple of 60s, 4 scores in the 70s. I suppose, it's not ultra low, but really not good enough for a premium defender, particularly this year. But in saying that, we mentioned his ceiling, did smash out a 156 in round 2, And if you're really desperate for cash, I think he's a decent option at the price. But personally, I'd prefer to pay up for a more reliable option. If he does change things around, though, it could really push you up the ranks. But on the flip side, if it doesn't work, well, you're a little bit screwed, aren't you? Well, Hilly, he's got the bye, been working really well in tandem with Sinclair. Hingy, been hanging around this price for a while. I think most original owners would have moved him on, but if you've still got him, I'd definitely hold this week. He'll provide cover and should make another 10k. Look, and these two blokes, SDK and Paddy Mack, like two peas in a pod, almost inseparable when you look at the numbers here. Both have handy DPP, rock solid job security, and ideally, I'm looking to hold McCartan for the rest of the year. I've heard that SDK will be playing on Norton this week, who's a dangerous type player, so I'm expecting a slight dip in his score against the Dogs, just a bit of a gut feel. They've both got a little bit more coin to make before that break even catches up to their 3-round average, so I think the best play, if you can, is to hold for this week, then flip next week if you want, but I'm trading possibly one now. If you are trading one now, probably you need to bring in probably a must-have player. It's all good if you're doing that. I've got no problems. Look, and as I said, I'm probably looking to move SDK this week because I've altered my trade plans to allow me to bring in a bloke who we'll discuss a little bit later. Swallow's a pod, but the time to jump on, if you're ever going to, which I wouldn't really recommend anyway, was a couple of weeks ago. And one of my favourite players in the comp, the Lizard, Nick Blakey, missed last week, but the Swans look forward to his return. I'm not sure that one of his teammates will, though. Gibcus, he's been a solid rookie for those who started with him, but break-evens in the red, has a bye this week. The issue is, though, a lack of downgrade options probably means you have to look to upgrade him, if anything. Dacos, Bowie, both in the same boat. Fine to chop now, but good cover for the next two. Ideally, we hold, then flip before round 14, but expect them to lose a little bit of cash in the meantime. It's, points versus cash gen. Your decision how you want to go there. The Seagull, I was alluding to one of Lizard Blakey's teammates, not looking forward to him coming back, and that was this man. Did score 101 points on the weekend, but the absence of the Lizard, I think, did have a bit to do with that. Who knows, may come good, but we haven't seen near enough from him. He's under 500k though. Whitfield with the bye. I'll be interested to see what happens with his role when he gets back, but yeah, not too sure. I flipped him and yeah, I think that was probably the best thing to do. But the best thing to do was flip him very early on this season. But yeah, at least I got out of him a week or two ago now. May, he'll miss this week, but past me anyway. Pendle's been spending a lot of time through the midfield. High CBA rate, but it's just not translating into decent SuperCoach scores, which is slightly surprising. Looking like a really safe pick a few weeks ago, but 3 weeks can be a long time in footy, and some teams may even be looking to trade him out in the current weeks. And Dane Zorko, the magician, nothing magic about his game of the weekend, dropped an absolute stinker. I almost got sucked into this pick about a month ago, but luckily I stayed clear in the end. Both McCartan, SDK have outscored him over the last 3 weeks, so I think it may be the time to cut your losses and move on. Limited preseason, well over 30, doesn't have a consistent role, questions over his durability, just too many red flags there now, but in saying that, he does provide good defensive cover for the next couple of weeks. Onto the defenders under 250k, and we can see Luke Cleary is a bubble boy up the top. Unfortunately, doesn't have great job security. I was a big fan of him. I was looking to bring him in, but did play as a sub. Didn't actually come onto the field, so he does remain at 117k, which is handy. If he comes in this week, you could certainly look to bring him in, but will he cover, for example, the round 14 bye? Maybe if you've got a Crisp, a Short, a Sicily, like I have, I'm not overly confident on that. But really do like him as a player. Skinnier type, but pretty smart type player. Reads the play well, but not sure if he comes back into the side. Weir obviously has a bye this week. Many teams would have maybe liked him to play this week, but I think given the fact that some are going to be struggling in 13, he may be a handy inclusion. Now, does he keep his spot? I'm, again, not overly confident. Whitfield's got to come back into the side. Does he play that role? Kennedy's got to come back into the side. So, I'm not too sure what his prospects are moving forward, but I may be forced to even bring him in this week if I want to upgrade to 2 other premiums and use my 3 trades. So, not overly confident, but option to bring him in, I suppose, if you really need to make a downgrade. Perez, we probably just keep for now. Break-even's in the green anyway. He'll cover for the next two, then he can flip. Got that defensive mid-swing as well, which could be super handy. Look, you could even leave him in your midfield as a loot for the rest of the year, if that's what you want to do, because many of our premiums down back have the same swing. Yeah, and if you're getting rid of, say, De Koning, McCartan, and you are already pretty thin down back, then, yeah, he may be a man to even keep on to as a bit of a strategic emergency loop type player anyway. Wanganeen Miller, he's got the bye this week. Perfect time to get rid of him. And Buku, well, unfortunately, I've got the poo symbol there and the slow burn. Actually looking to lose money this week. Certainly goes out, and Hugo Hagen comes in after his, 5-6 goal performance on the weekend. On to the midfielders, 500k plus, and as you can see here, a lot of blue. So we've got Zerrett, Crouch, Parrish, Ross, Jelly, and Sam Walsh all missing this week. Josh Kelly, just mind you, 137 is the best 3-round average in the comp, and as I said, going to be a big discussion point next week, and that's when we're going to go into a lot of detail about these players in blue. I'm going to pretty much skip them this week because we're not going to look to bring them in this week, but certainly next week. I think the big three are probably going to be Zerrett, Parrish, and Walsh. 3 really nice options, but yeah, going to be hard to split them. You know, at the moment, I'm most likely planning for Zerrett, purely because of that price tag. 520k for someone with his capabilities is an absolute bargain. But look, there's 4 blokes here that aren't actually in blue. We've got Guthrie up the top, 72 disposals in the last fortnight, averaging 125 in his last 2, 106 for a 3-rounder, so nothing awesome there, but does have a decent fixture in the next month, does face West Coast, North Melbourne, so maybe an option for a really bargain basement F8. Now, if you're planning on bringing in a few of those dogs forwards after their bye, then he may be someone to look at, mainly due to his price. It's a big risk, though, as he's struggled to score consistently this season. But if you are looking to go big on other lines, then something has to give. We know last season, particularly the first half of the season, really nice average. Was one of the uber premiums, basically. Lots of people jumped on, but then obviously injured himself and disappointed for the majority of the second half of the year. But yeah, I'm not looking to go there personally and wouldn't overly recommend him, but yeah, bargain basement type stuff if you want to go there. Clary, no discussion needed. You know, he's clearly going to be a top 8 mid. It's the same with Lockie Neal down the bottom there. Bring him in now if you want. Got the round 14 bye. At any stage, I think you just need to bring in these 2 blokes, Oliver and Neal. And Benny Keys, so 105 for a 3-rounder. Got, you know, the only bloke in green here. Around the 550 mark. Break even is in red. So when the break even's 114 and in red, it's never a good sign. I'd be looking to avoid Keys at this stage, but don't hate him as an option. Just rate other people ahead of him. Andy Brayshaw doesn't have a nice 3-round average, but may fit some coaches' buy structures. Toggy's down, which is super frustrating, and in round 13, they'll also need to fit in 5. So has a decent ceiling, but more like a potential top 12 mid rather than the top 8, I think. Wines and Cripps obviously have the week off. Maybe look at them next week if you don't own them. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan. Not at Wines' price, because we've seen him have a bit of a lower floor this year. Cripper been a little bit underwhelming during the last 3 weeks. Laird, now I've got the new symbol on Lairdy this week, and that's the captain symbol. If you're one of the 8% of people that own him, then firstly, well done. And secondly, get him in your loop, as he's got the potential to absolutely feast on the Eagles. He's super reliable, won't let you down, and clearly a top 8 mid at the moment. McRae, frustrating to own, but I'm holding without a doubt. Don't jump on him though. Mills, he's got the role reversal symbol because he went down back last week. I don't think it'll be a permanent move, but he still scored okay anyway. You know, I'd love to own him. Has a monster ceiling, 147, 167, and a 214 if you don't mind. So that certainly offsets his lower scoring games. Has chucked a 60 in there. But look, it's very scary as an owner, but I'm not really in a position to afford him. He's the perfect VC option as well. Track just right off that game. You know, he's crook as a dog, couldn't run, shouldn't have played. It's a strange decision, but he'll be at a nice price in a few weeks, 2-3 weeks. Took got North this week. Great VC loop option, albeit a very inconsistent season. I'm looking forward to this week and expecting a big score. But look, it's best to trade in round 14 if you're a non-owner. But that break even, is massively in the red. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k. And to be honest, I think we'll get through this slide pretty quick. We've got 4 in the blue, which is Hobbs, Martin, Boak and Green. I know a few people actually jumping off Tom Green. That 3-round average of 85, is a tad concerning, and it's looking like he's certainly not going to be a keeper, which we thought there was a very high chance that he would have been early on in the season. And maybe the same could be said about Travis Boak. They're almost at an identical price there, as you can see. So really disappointing, particularly if you jumped on him a few weeks ago. Nick Martin, I've already traded him out. I think he's a trade out at this stage, and I think we probably hold on to Hobbs if you can. But in the green there, we've got Haitley, Kelly and Rao. Rao down the bottom, I think he's a chop now. Look, you can hold him as cover if you're desperate for him to be in this week, but if not, that break even, certainly in red with a 120, almost double his 3-round average, so certainly the time to get out of this pick, I think. Kelly certainly is a pod, but not someone that I'll be looking to bring into the side, just being too inconsistent. The Eagles as a side are getting smashed, so not really interested there. And Jackson Haitley, this bloke has been a massive surprise. George's old mate, 353,900 with a 3-round average of 102. Is this just a flash in the pan? I'm not sure. I don't think that it is. I think he's actually really stepped up and become a half-decent player. Spent a fair bit of time in the reserves, but when he's got his opportunity, he really has grabbed it with both hands. Break even of 13, projected score of 81, looking to go up another 30k. But probably not for me. I'm just never a fan of bringing in players at this price range, particularly at this stage of the season when we're looking to finish our sides. Just don't see him being a keeper. And then the 3 blokes in red, you got Bez up the top. I tell you what, probably a career best game from Berry. Just did everything. It's amazing what this bloke can do when he's given more opportunity and a bit more responsibility. His best mate Hugh McCluggage obviously didn't play on the weekend. Bez stepped up, first time in his career, got 30 plus disposals and did that with ease as well. So very, very proud of my man Bez. But you're not looking to obviously invest in him, but as an owner, definitely hold. Not only will he cover for the next couple of weeks, he'll actually go up in price, and you're hoping he can get close to 400k anyway. That would be a real win if you're still a Berry owner. A Newcomb, 431,000, probably just irrelevant. And Titch as well, look, he could be a relevant pick, fantasy pick of the past, as we know, but same old thing, and I'll say this each week. Personally, this is just a personal point of view, I just can't trust the man, just too up and down for mine. On to the midfielders, under 250k, and as you can see here, not much red. In fact, no red at all. No round 14 buy plays. We do have 4 in the blue, which we'll be missing this week. Probably the main man that we will be talking about next week is Mitch Owens. Be really interesting to see if he actually gets another game. I know he performed really well, but there are a few plays to come back into that side, so it'll be really interesting there. Hamilton, unfortunately, seems like a bit of a dead rookie. Rioli, pretty poor game last week, but definitely think he keeps his spot. And Carroll, I'm not expecting him, and I'm a Carroll owner, I'm not expecting him to be covering for me during the buys. I'm just counting him as a bit of a non-playing player at the moment. If he does play, I think it's just a bit of a bonus. And to the blokes in green, we got Saligo there, negative break-even of 18, but over 200k now. Probably wouldn't go there. Cooper Stevens, ship sailed there, same as Saligo, and Chris Scott is his coach, which is never a good thing, and that's the same thing with the man below him, Mitch Nevitt. Will he even get a game? Not too sure. Isaiah, not really. Still got a negative break even, but wouldn't be investing in him. You can see here, though, that I do have the hold, so I'm not saying that you trade out any of these blokes. Definitely not the right decision. Definitely hold on to them. It's just a matter of, do you bring him in? I don't think any of the blokes on this list you do. Clark, I'm hoping to keep for the year. He'll be really, really nice bench coverage. So if you can keep on to him, I would highly recommend it. He's got a nice ceiling. Gave us a 70-odd last week. Already scored 100, which we've seen. Couple of 50s, but that was, playing a little bit of a different role. So I really highly recommend to do that if you can. I don't think there's any reason to need to trade him out unless you're absolutely desperate. McComb obviously got that mid-forward status now, which is going to be handy maybe for a week or two, but my plan is to obviously hold this week, low break even of 6, looking to go up around 26k, which is going to be very, very important for my future upgrades. It doesn't seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, particularly for my side, I don't know what your personal situation is, but for me, 26k could mean the absolute world. You know, I was 2,800 away from getting in gone with a single trade this week, and that sort of led me to make another change of plans and then a big major change of plans. So it can mean a lot in the grand scheme of things, and as I've already talked about, Rioli and Carroll will be missing. So yeah, not a lot to see here. Don't invest, and I don't think you trade out. On to the Rucks, and we have a few Eagles at the top here. Strundicard doesn't look likely to get a game. Jamison Dixon, you can hold for cover this week. Flip if you want to. And Mr. Braden Preuss, now I'll actually talk about him even though he's got the bye, because he's pretty relevant this week. Obviously played in the twos last week, which was a major surprise to me. You know, the tricks just continue with the Giants. They had 11 touches, 17 hit-outs, so far from a dominant performance and doesn't really scream select me, but Flynn was also pretty poor. Preuss, he's pretty much been scoring like a premium and hasn't let me down when he's been playing on field. 6 games for 6 tons, with his lowest score being a 102. Unfortunately, doesn't have the ceiling, I don't think, of the big three. And when I say the big three, I'm talking about English, Darcy and Gawn. He does offer consistency, though, when he's actually playing. And there's another issue. He's missed 5 games, and honestly just don't know what's happening here. There are so many realistic outcomes, I think. You got Flynn stays in, Preuss stays in the twos for a small portion of time. They could drop Flynn, give Preuss another crack. They could even play the two in tandem. Also the chance that they didn't just trust Preuss's fitness coming back from that virus. So there's so many unknowns, and that's what scares me about the pick, and that's why I've decided to most likely jump ship this week. It's been an awesome ride, and he's done wonders for my team. You know, came at an ideal time, and who knows, he could be, say, the 4th best ruck from here, but I'm not willing to take the chance, I don't think, and I'm going to cash in now. Super frustrating that he didn't reach 500k though, because all the planning suggested this at this stage should be around 500k, and then it's around 50k to a Gawn and around 100k to a Darcy Wits type. But it is what it is, and look, if you hold, then I think you can still get to that price. But I'm getting out of the pick. Has a buy this week. I'm jumping to most likely around 14 buy player, I think. Hayes, I think he's okay to trade out for a ruck forward loop whenever you want, as long as you have an English, maybe Cameron type in your forward line, just to swing in for cover if needed. If you're a Darcy owner, I think it's almost essential, or Hayes could be even a season holder for coverage if you can afford it. I can't see too many teams in that lucky position though. Cameron, we don't invest in, but as an owner, you're pretty happy at the moment. 100% holding, receive DPP as expected, which you can always put to good use, particularly during the buys. Nank obviously has a buy this week, but look at that 3-round average, a 126. Yeah, I think it was Harry that jumped on a week or two ago. So if you did actually go through all that, mate, yeah, very, very well done. Well done. The next bloke has a couple of symbols next to his name this week. He has the Shrek symbol, ode to my man Eno, and the best buy symbol. In a nutshell, Shrek is the super pod you're looking for in under 5% of sides, and has a potential to literally be the best scorer in the game. We know about his durability risk, but we also know about his ceiling. You know, think back to last year when he had that gigantic 3-round average. You know, in the last 10 weeks, he had scores of 140, 193, 183, 156, and a 150. So that is just nuts. You know, his 2 biggest scorers as well were against Hawthorn and Carlton, who he faces in the next 3 weeks. And we've already seen a 178 versus North this year. So I love him as a pick, has a nice upcoming fixture, and really could be what you're looking for to really move up the ranks. But look, as we know, there's always risk attached to the pick. Will he play every game for the remainder of the season? Yeah, not really sure with that. And last one we got here is Big Maxi. So hit back last week with his best score in a month, 20 touches, 8 marks and a goal was his best return to wall. Also, it was against Big Darcy. Has lost over 100k on his starting price. But can we trust him? I'm not too sure. I think his knee's been affecting him. So maybe he just needs a rest during the buys, maybe return to his premium numbers. Maybe even last week he's felt a little bit better, starting to return, maybe even before the bye. And that would be really nice because I'm highly considering him this week. Look, it's out of him and Gawn for me. It's, look, arguably the safer pick would be to go Gawn, but Darcy provides much more upside, in my opinion. So the other issue you got there is 552 versus 581. Now, I've done some really stringent buy planning over the next 2 weeks, and it pretty much works out for my personal situation anyway. If I was to go a Darcy over a Gawn, that may stop me from being able to bring, just say, a Baz into my side or a Bont type into my side, and I might need to skimp out and maybe go with a Libba. That's the difference for me. So I've almost got to look at this, and this is future planning again. Best plans can go out the window, but I've almost got to look, and this might be the same for some of you as well. You need to look at it, at players that you bring in almost as a pairing, or any sort of a combo. If you're bringing 3 in, for example. So if I'm looking at bringing Gawn in, I've probably got enough money to bring in Baz. If I bring in Darcy, who's obviously the pick that I'd prefer, then there's a slight chance that I won't be able to get to Baz unless I do burn another trade. And, I want to keep on to as many trades as I can once I've completed my side, not only for injuries and potential COVID carnage, but also for maybe a luxury upgrade or two if I can afford it. So it's a big decision for me. I'd love to go Darcy, but that 30-odd K is a bit of a sticking point. So, purely team dependent. Darcy in much better form, I think. But, maybe it's looking like a Gawn for me. Onto the forwards, 500k plus. And I think it's pretty obvious what the theme is here. 6 out of the 8 players that you see are all doggies. You've got Timmy English, Baz Smith, Dunkley, Treloar, Bont, and Libba. The only other 2 players on the list being Will Brodie and Luke Parker. So we'll quickly get Will Parker, geez, I'm going well here, aren't I? Luke Parker and Will Brodie out of the way. Well, with Brodie, he's actually got the 8th highest 3-round average in the comp. So in ripping form, 4 nice hundreds in a row. He's made 327k in his starting price. Absolutely phenomenal starting pick. He's kicked a handball ratio, that's really improved, and we know everything else about him. A clearance king, really clean with his hands. Now the big news is that Fife will be playing in the Waffle this week, but returning to the senior side the week after. So how will this affect Will Brodie? I'm not really sure how the midfield mix will work moving forward from here, but I think with Brodie, what we know is that's where he does his best work. That's where he's been damaging, and he's been one of Freo's best midfielder, if not their best midfielder this year, obviously vying with Brayshaw for that. But look, at 552k, we're definitely holding him for now. I think he's a season-long keeper. Ideally, you'd probably like one of the dogs ahead of him, but I think, he's a ripping pick, and if Fife doesn't seem to affect him too much, I'm just going to hold. If not, then maybe he's a candidate to move up to one of the other blokes that we'll talk about soon from the Dogs. And the other bloke we've got here is Luke Parker. So I've got him probably 5th in my forward rankings. Only gone under 3 figures once in the last 7 weeks, and that was at 89 where he had his ankle issue and scored nothing in the second half. So I think he's a really safe option, and I'm a really happy owner. Currently in around 20% of sides, and if you're still on the fence about it, you are saving 45k off his starting price. With that 3-round average of 111, that break even still in the green. So all good to bring him in, but as we know, all the blokes you'll see in green here will be missing next week. So back to the doggies. Now, we've got 6 options here. So look, they're sort of hard to rate. Look, I've got sort of a rating in my head. So I think clearly number 1, you're looking at Timmy English. I'll talk about them in more detail in a sec. Number 2, I've got Dunkley. Now, number 3 and 4 is where I do find it a little bit more difficult. I've probably got Baz just a little bit ahead of Bont. And then I actually like, well, it's a bit of a toss-up, but I do like Libba in front of Treloar. And the only reason for that is durability. Treloar's actually been playing really well. Consider that 3-round average of 117. But we'll talk about him in a sec. But that's probably my rankings 1 to 6 at this stage. And what you'll notice here with Timmy English is I think that he's an absolute must-have And I think he took everyone by surprise, on the weekend. A 160, no one saw this coming. This talk of him losing, what was it, 8 to 10 kilos, missed 5-6 weeks of footy. Even though it was against West Coast, there's no way that this man would come back and dominate. I was expecting, at best, maybe a low ton. Sweet was in the side as well. And I thought maybe at worst, he may even go around a 70 type. Why not just rest him in the forward line, just get some game time in him? We knew what the result was going to be before the match even started. The Dogs are always going to win, and most likely win by a big margin. So, yeah, I was really surprised and pretty devastated at the same time, because all of a sudden, as I just mentioned, I think he's an absolute must-have. The coverage that he can provide. So, if you've got a couple of the big two in the ruck, so you've got your Wits and you've got your Darcy, for example, all you need is to most likely get Hayes down to one of those loops, whack English in your forward line as your as your F1, and then just swing if needed. He just provides fantastic coverage, and he's one of those players that I think if you don't have him, he can actually really, really hurt you. So I'm most likely jumping on him this week. And as I said, hasn't gone under 20 touches, getting his hit-outs as well, impacting the scoreboard, out of how many games he played now? 6 games, 4 goals, so almost a goal a game. That's always handy, and he just gets around the ground so well. So, in my humble opinion, I think that would you move mountains? I almost would. Well, I'm seriously contemplating at the moment trading Heaney up to English. And hey, you may say, hey, that's a pretty basic and easy and logical move to make, but it's always a bit of a tough decision when you do expect someone like a Heaney to be a keeper, and all of a sudden, maybe he's not what you thought he was. But in short, it's been pretty long, I suppose, by now, the English discussion. Just get him into your side, I think. If it's not this week, you can always wait until the bye, but expect to pay around the 6.30 mark, and you will need to definitely budget for that anyway. Now, got Dunkley at 2, but I think most of us have him by now, so don't need a lot of discussion. What's his 3-round average? It's 126, so break even of 90. If for some reason you don't have him, I think you need to get him into your side as well. Who's the next one? Well, let's go with Baz. 30 plus touches in 6 out of 9 games, had a 41-34 in his last 2. Obviously missed last week, which is actually pretty handy for non-owners, because we can afford to bring him into the side without that, first price rise. Not first price rise, but the price rise that's upcoming. So he's looking to go up around 20k after this week. So look, you could still wait to bring him in, get him around the 580k mark, and this if he goes around a 112, which I think is realistic. Definitely think that could happen. So either way, I think it's okay to either go this week or just play it smart, give it a week and then pay up a little bit more if you've got the cash in the bank to do so. But his floor sits at around 80, ceiling sits at around 140. Bond, it was his first time under 100 in the last month, I'm going to say. Kicked a goal every game with 2 lots of 3. Only 2 really decent games, that 130 and 136. But apart from that, 4 low hundreds. His floor sits around the 90 mark. But probably a little bit too much time forward and more of a week-to-week proposition. I did watch something on the TV. He was getting interviewed during the week on Fox Footy, and he did say that, he speaks with Bevo sort of later on in the week, what do you want me to do? Sometimes he can just get a bit of a read for the game and make a few changes himself as a captain, as a leader, and other times sort of go in with a bit of a plan, and it's sort of, team dependent, who they're coming up against. Sometimes they want to throw the opposition off as well. So, Bont's a little bit of a tougher one. And, as I said, probably more of a week-to-week proposition. The other one, so Treloar, nothing, spectacular. Big 149, and then some low hundreds, some 70s, some 80s. The last dog forward on my list out of the big 6, I'd say. But again, that may be a little bit biased. I may be worrying too much about his durability history. He has been okay this year. But, that's just, I suppose, the skeptic in me. And Libba, clearly behind at least the top 4, so it's probably out of him and Treloar, I think, for 5th. But I'd just be targeting all those blokes ahead of Libba, I think. So in short, I would really be looking to target these blokes. All the blokes that you see on the list here, I think, are the ones that you want to finish with. So you've got 8 options here. Very likely, I think that these could be the top 8 by the end of the season. Onto the forwards, 250 to 500k, and as you can see, we have by City. 7 out of the 10 players on this list will be unavailable this week, so this will be a pretty quick discussion. Not around 13 by player in sight either, so there's only 3 blokes in blue I think have a remote chance of being one of those lower scoring budget F6 type options, and that's Cogs, Butters and Gresh. I'm planning on holding Butters, so personally hoping he continues his nice 3-round run. But look, if you can, we definitely want the blokes that we've already discussed. But look, who do we talk about? Well, DeGoey finally hit back, and a shout out to JD. Well done, mate. Great to see him have a solid week for you, bud. Would I invest? No. Does he have the potential to average in the top 10 forwards from here? Possibly, but as I said before, we just need to focus on the dogs if possible. Sidey's another one in red, but no way, absolute trap for mine. Maybe disrespectful, been a great player for a long time, but yeah, a bit of a nothing sort of season to date. And Jed Anderson's the other bloke. I must admit, did consider this for a few hours as a quick cash grab and coverage for the next 2 weeks, but look, at the end of the day, I don't really trust him. Was huge last week and played a ripper though. 144 points, 28 touches, but many of those were contested. Smashed the opposition, had 12 tackles. Basically did everything as he could as an individual to get his team up. But do I expect another 140 plus next week? Probably not in my opinion. You know, his other 3 scores read 23, 55 and 87. Now, I suppose the positive is that he's been tracking upwards from his last game and building into the season, but I don't think he can become a keeper. Look, there's a chance, but the odds are pretty low. If you bugger down back, you know, for the next couple of buys, that it may be a play to look at if you're in that boat, but if not, then I'd just let Anderson go through the keeper. And again, only a few blokes here to discuss as 4 have the bye this week. Mitch Duncan, he's a really easy pass for now. Pretty much irrelevant with the Dogs forwards we have on offer. Won't cut it this year for me. Paddy Lip, hold or chop, up to you. Should leak a little bit of coin, but not too much. Just do what's best for your buy structure, but he's certainly not a keeper. You will need to move him on at some stage. And this bloke, I'm almost fed up, and I'm looking to break up the relationship this week. Seriously considering dumping him, because there's not a lot to like about Isaac Heaney at the moment, apart from a bit of potential and a bit of hope. After 2 rounds, we thought, here we go, he's finally arrived, here to stay. I thought he was a must-have, jumped on board straight away, but did this man fool me? The temptation got to me, and slowly but surely, he started to do Heaney things. And look, it's a shared blame in a way. There are 3 people to blame here. There's Heaney, Horse, and myself. Heaney is terribly out of form. His work rate seems to have dropped off, and his kicking, particularly goal kicking, is severely letting him down. You know, couldn't miss to start the season, but now it's just the complete opposite. With Horse, you know, his role's terrible. Did find a bit of the peel of the week before, but he still couldn't translate that into a ton. Now, I know what will happen here. I'll trade him out this week, and he'll kick 5 against the tees. You know, he's that sort of player. You know, but I have noticed that, and I think I've mentioned this maybe for the last couple of weeks, but he's not really presenting as a target. He seems to be looking for the crumb, get the ground ball which is strange because marking's one of his major strengths. Really confusing. You know, is he carrying something? I'm not sure, but I don't think so. To be honest, originally I was looking to hold him, and then if he doesn't improve, you know, luxury upgrade when the team was complete, even, you know, if I have that luxury. But given the rise of the Dogs forwards, in particular Slim Tim, who we've already talked about, I'll most likely move him on. With the players we've featured as well on the previous slide, I think it'll be too tough, and the gap between Heaney and, you know, those good Dogs, maybe 20 to even 35 points a week if you're talking a Timmy English, which really does add up at the end of the season. So personally for me, I'm highly likely to go Heaney to English this week. And we'll finish off with the forwards under 250k. Thanks very much for sticking with me. The man up the top, Joel Jeffrey. Love the name, love watching this guy play. Real X-Factor type, does some exciting things, and in a bit of a purple patch, playing the best footy of his career and looking like a mainstay in the Gold Coast forward line at the moment. My little fella loves him, partly because of the fact that our dog's name is Jeffrey, but he's really electric. You know, main issue here is his price, and can he keep up the form? You know, after a miserable score of 25 in round 9, he has rewarded the coaches for keeping the faith with him, posted 95 in round 10 against the Dogs, and then the 93 last week against the Hawks. Booted a nice bag of 5 for his 95, but only the one snag last week, which may or may not be a good sign. I'm leaning towards it may be a good sign because he must have other scoring avenues. Plays North this week, so could have another good showing, but there are never any guarantees with the Gold Coast forward. He's projected to make around 55k this week, but then he's got the bias, so a tricky one. Job security is fantastic, I think, at the moment. He'd have to, have maybe 2 to 3 pretty poor games, I think, to lose his spot. So, look, I'd advocate to trade him in if he was, around a 123k price tag, but not at close to 200. I think the ship's probably sailed here, but he would be a fun yet frustrating player to own, I'd say. Sammy Butler, look, one I was actually looking at, and I hate the fact that I was because I don't love the pick. It's more out of the pure desperation type thing, but as I mentioned earlier, I've changed my plans, so I may be able to avoid him, but looks like a decent player, has a DPP, but job security and scoring ceiling is a bit of an unknown for me. He'll be a slow burn type pick, but you may be only looking for him to cover for the next 2 weeks. Unless you want to pay up for Jeffers, then the cupboard's pretty bare. Butler, and no offense to the great man, is like the last thing in your cupboard, and you're absolutely starving. You just got to eat it like, I don't know, a can of corn kernels, a month or two after use by date. That's probably sounds mean, but it does make sense. But I think you sort of know what I mean. And I'm losing battery here. How's that? But I'm losing it down. We're almost done. I'm going to get through it. Jesse Motlop, probably an option next week if you're desperate. Roses enjoyed his homecoming last week, put on a nice performance for his friends and family. Gets a couple of snags, some nice defensive pressure. Should have his spot locked. I'm holding this week, then flipping the next. Curtis, Connor Mack, both have around 14 buys, so just hold for now. Only reason I hold on to McDonald for this long, so yeah, it's been his nice buy coverage. He mainly drop a 50, but it's better than eating donuts. And the last man featuring on the stocky this week is Joshua Shelley. I think the plan is to hold this week and then trade next week. We know he's got a ceiling, and we may actually get to see that for the first time in a while as he's playing West Coast this week. Has another bag in him at some stage this season, and I think this will be one of his best opportunities. But his break-even is in the red, has a 3-round average, nothing to write home about. But with Shelley, the choice is yours. So that's it for now, guys. Thanks very much for watching. All the best of luck with your trade-ins and trade-outs this week. Hopefully you've been planning for the buys. If you haven't, well, you got 3 trades at your disposal. Hopefully you can just get to 18 and then have a couple of strong buys after that. Thank you very much again for all the well wishes and support. Almost at 100% again. The throat a little bit croaky. Apologies for the voice probably during the video, but hopefully I've managed to help you maybe make a couple of tough decisions this week. So apart from that, guys, take care, all the best, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.